Mind 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to be getting back into The Octunnumi by Trevor Allen Forrest. And if you can, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. But without further ado, grab your snack, grab your drinks, or sit back and relax. And let's get to it. So that went well. Having come straight from the counselors' meeting, Trad and Reg take up their positions with the members of the observation team in the merchant sector, with the celebrations well underway. Their progress along the thriving streets is slow. "No one died," Reg shouts above the steel drums being played in the passing procession. Watching Phoebe joining in with her own miniature version, bobbing beside the lead drummer. "More like luck than judgment," Trad shouts in reply. "True, but still a result." The drums, having moved on, are replaced by the acrobatic troupe of pixies and Phoebe, who is clearly intent on involving herself in every display, tumbles and falls in sequence with the group as the crowd oohs and ahs their appreciation. "What, that no one died?" Trad asks. "No, that the Alliance has accepted the Bewitchers." "Did they have a choice?" "Of course. They could have voted against their involvement." "Huh. And how many times does that happen?" Trad asks. People going against a Bewitcher, grinning at his brother. He continues. "The clue is in the title, don't you think?" "No. Reg stops to consider this. "No." He shakes his head and continues walking. "They didn't use their skills." "Did they?" He shakes his head again. "No." "Good to see you're so sure." Trad smiles. "Well, even if they did, it would ultimately be for the greater good." "I'm not so sure about the greater good. Who decides what or who the greater good is? The Bewitchers don't seem to be doing too badly." "Oh yeah, because history has always been so kind to Bewitchers." Reg looks at his brother. "The hangings, the drownings, the burnings at the stake. Now who's believing old wives' tale?" Trad says, "Anyway, they look okay to me." "Well, they look okay to you. Of course, what I see..." "Let's not start that again," Reg laughs. "And black cats?" Trad comments. I'm getting me one of those. Being protectors and all." "Really? This is news to you," Reg says. "You've always known they keep bad spirits away. Why do you think Mum has so many when in Fethris?" "Because she is the crazy cat lady," Trad mutters. "And anyway, I just thought that meant keeping the Bewitchers in their place," he replies. "You know, keeping them away from everyone else. I didn't realize it meant that having a black cat actually protects the owner from bad spirits." "And yet another example of not paying attention to the briefings," Reg states. "Whatever," Trad mutters. "So what now?" he asks. Helping untangle a balloon from a lamp and handing it back to the little Fae, who smiles gratefully as she clutches it and skips away. Now we watch and wait. Vibi, now balancing on Trad's shoulder, produces an oversized pair of binoculars and scans the crowd. Feels wrong, this. Trad gestures the carnival. With everything that's going on, it buys us time, Reg replies. And this is the best place for everyone until we sort everything out. He pauses, watching the Laviate as they perform synchronized juggling 10 feet up. It might be a while before we have anything else to celebrate. Comforting thoughts, Trad comments, stopping to admire some chalk art, the illusion momentarily trickling his eyes into thinking the ground had opened up. Oh wow, toffee apples. Reg smiles as he heads off to the little cart, wheeling them around, leaving Trad still trying to understand the illusion. Tilting his head slightly, Trad's attention is drawn to a sound different to those around him. Distant calling, gradually lifting his gaze, he scans the crowd. If he could just, at least, Reg continues, wandering back with his apple. Trad? He calls after his brother as he suddenly disappears into the crowd. Trad! Vibi, bobbing just above his head, signals Reg to follow. Trad, what the hell? Reg mutters, handing the apple to a passerby and pushing through the throng, trying to keep Vibi in his sights. Finally reaching him, Reg grabs his coat, but Trad pulls away, continuing to push through the crowd. It's Pemity, he shouts. Taking a moment to digest Trad's word, Reg then rushes after him, both emerging at the edge of the main square. Trad stops, frantically scanning the crowd. Trad! Vithjin shouts from across the clearing, forcing her way to the front. Where is she, Trad? Where is she? Holding up his hand and tilting his head again, listening through the music and singing, he smiles. Trad! Vithjin calls again, darting away between the performers. What the hell, Trad? Vith, having made it across the square, grabs him, looking up into his face, trying desperately to latch onto his thoughts. He grins down at her. I know where she is. This way. Confronted by a wall of rubbish, Trad ducks under an abandoned car propped against several other scraped vehicles to navigate his way around the pile of junk in front of them. So much rubbish, everything from heavy plant machinery, cars, vans, buses, to plastic bottles, magazines, papers, tins, boxes, bags, clothes, all manners of discarded items. But there is something slightly odd about this rubbish. It sort of isn't. Of course, it is in the true sense of things used and thrown away, but it is how they have been collected here that is odd. The bottles, neatly stacked, magazines neatly bundled and tied, papers, tins, boxes, everything neat, clean, ordered, and possibly even categorized, judging by the way everything is so, well, neat. Suddenly aware that Trad has disappeared from view, Veeth and Reg follow under the car, emerging into an area that quite possibly be an amphitheater. Old timber planks held together by scaffold poles, making up tiered platforms run around the interior, behind which the rubbish creates the backdrop to a system of shoveling houses. Yet more rubbish, which most definitely is categorized. A collection of pulleys and cogs operating several platforms lifts allow access to all these levels, which overlook the central arena, currently home to a collection of rubbish sculptures. That is to say, the sculptures made from rubbish. Trad sorry. From the delicate and intricate to the chunky and harsh, the workmanship of all, stunning, but probably the most stunning thing is extraordinarily huge creature, clad head to toe to the garb of a blacksmith cum welder, currently tossing Trad into a large bin cage suspended from what is clearly a sculpture in progress. Trad, none too impressed, rattles the bars and shouts at the giant blacksmith, then, realizing just how high up he must now be, stops protesting immediately, standing back to admire his handiwork. The giant blacksmith pushes up his visor, revealing once yellow bristles and hair now blackened and scorched. Clearly happy with his new addition, smiles a big toothy grin. Yanking Reg by the arm, Veeth pulls him sideways and under the staggered. The tall steel pipes at the back of the vehicle belch clouds of white steam. The driver, clad from head to toe in similar blacksmith gear, stands and steps out of the buggy directly onto the rough swan wooden platform suspended inches from the floor. Leaning heavily on the largest of the levers, the little figure steps back and waits for the device to stir into action as the connecting pulleys and wheels mesh together, rising the platform again. "Where do you think you're going?" Veeth hisses as she stops Reg, giving up their hiding place. "Well, there's no point in us all getting caught, is there?" she whispers. "But..." "Shh." So, mumbles a muffled voice calls from within the headgear as the platform works its way. "What have you got for me then, hey?" Mumbles something. Yes, I'm sure I will like it. But really, you know that the recycle rally is here." She pauses before stressing, "Tonight." Mumbles again. "Of course, I love your work, but we are supposed to be finding practical ways to use this stuff. There's only so many She stops dead, drawing eye level with Tradian Everwick. "Thyphimus," exclaims the none too friendly tiny blacksmith. "Uh-oh," Phoebe whispers, peeking over the top of Trad's pocket and quickly retreating. Doris, Trav replies, leaning back against the cage, arms folded, equally unfriendly and equally resigned to his fate. Doris Diggles, she of the pixie, revamp, relove, reuse branch, not a title they had asked for, but none the less one they wore with pride, pushes up the visor on the mask. Her brilliant green eyes sparkle. Come to see the mess your kind have made of my insomid? She asks, moving closer to the cage, the brilliance of her eyes darkening as she glares up at him. Doris was, even the pixie standards, small. Very small. Well, you remember this, don't you? She gestures around the large coat and thick gloves, making her movement puppet-like. The fields, the trees, the babbling brook. She glares back at him again. All gone. Trad begins to object, but thinks better of it. This was at one time an open, picturesque countryside in Sumer, where wildlife had flourished and plant life had bloomed. The stream at one time teemed with life and sparkling water, not the motionless sludge of today. It wasn't always, of course. It had at one time also been fields and wildlife and plants and streams, but as is the way with the urban sprawn of Fethris, the nearby hamlet was now a town, and the rubbish had to go somewhere. You promised that you were dealing with this. She wags her gloved finger at him. You said this would stop, and yet here we are. With all due respect, Doris. Trad attempts to calm her down. It's not mine, is it? Don't try and be clever with me, Tradian Everwick Thivamus. She flies at the cage, bat-like. She clings to the bars, sending the cage into a spin. Your kind caused this. Bad enough that you've covered Fethris, but now it's pushing into my world. Look, we're trying. Oh, I know the Octunnumi are trying, and I know that some are listening, and that progress is being made. But really, how much longer? How much longer will my access point be so crammed with rubbish that it is completely unusable, huh? Raising her hand to stop him speaking, as she jumps back to the platform, she continues, and why has this even happened, Tradian Everwick Thivamus? Because your lot just don't get it. Some things are not meant to be made. Well, I mean, really, she continues to rant. Do your lot wake up and think, what can I do to ruin the planet today? I know. She walks around the platform. Let's make something that is hard wearing. Mumbles, and nods as she counts out her stubby gloved fingers. Cheap to make, so let's make lots of it. Another mumble, another finger. Has lots of uses, another mumble, another finger. So we can use it everywhere. She spreads her arms as Mumbles nods and mumbles in agreement. But She swivels to face Trad. It lasts forever, huh? Well, hang on, I know this one. No, don't tell me. You think you're so funny, Tradian Everwick Thivamus? She snaps. Plastic, Tradian. Plastic. What were you thinking, Tradian? Making all that plastic. It's killing animals, Tradian. She shrieks. Then turning away from him, she says, the very thing that you brought you lot here. She sighs. At least your brother. She pauses at the realization that Trad is on his own. Spinning to face him, she asks sweetly, where's Reg? Over. Reg attempts to call out. Are you nuts? Veeth hisses as she clamps her hand over his mouth. Well? Seizing the opportunity, Vibi zips onto Trad's shoulder. He must be here. You two never work alone, Doris remarks, turning back to Trad. So come on, where is he? Trad shrugs, flicking Vibi into his hoodie, out of sight. Because if Reg were here, she says, removing the headgear, allowing a shock of spiky neon green hair to be released and tucking it behind her little pointy ear. Well, that would be a different thing altogether, because he understands. Veeth turns to Reg, who shrugs meekly. I mean, he really understands. She kicks off each of her calf-length boots, revealing shiny green ballet pumps. Why are you blocking your mind? Veeth whispers to Reg. Tell her to mind her own business, Mr. Regis. I'm not. Tell her. Really? Well, why are you trying to read it? Touché, Mr. Regis. So kind, Doris continues, dreamily, watching the archway closely, so thoughtful. Trad is imitating throwing up behind her, which does not go unnoticed by Mumbles, who flicking the cage makes it rock violently. Always the gentleman, Doris gushes. Anything to share? Veeth asks, facing Reg, who unmoving says nothing. Right, that's it. Veeth shouts up to Doris as she strides out from their hiding place. Will someone tell me what's going on here? Whoa. Who are you? I might ask you the same question. I live here. Lucky you, Veeth mutters, glancing across the yard. Oh, you find this offensive, don't you? Well, so you should. This is your doing. Mine? Yes, you and your kind, she says. You and the hip, all your mates. Don't you, ladies, Reg interrupts, rising up on an energy stream as he brings himself level with the platform. Reg! Doris gasps, blushing. Thank goodness you're here. Yes, Reg, Veeth mutters. Thank goodness you are here. Yay for Reg, Trad mutters from his cage, as Vibi silently and sarcastically echoes his words while continuing with her task. Doris, Reg nods as his head. Reg nods his head as he starts to lower himself onto the platform. Take care, Mr. Regis. Barely making contact before. You know how. Doris throws herself at him. Excitable she is, resulting in the pair landing in a heap of Veith's feet, Reg's hat rolling into her ankle, while she clings desperately to the chains of the rocking platform. I knew you couldn't keep away. I knew you would be back. Back? I may have been once or twice. Once or twice? Doris jumps up. Reg has been here 382 and a half times in the last year, not including today. A half? Yes. One time he was stopped by some hussy. He was nearly here, then she dragged him back. Apparently it was her birthday or something. She pauses, looking at her. Veith Jen, I think it was. That's me. It is? Doris, looking at her up and down. It is. So, Doris, lovely as it is to see you after so long, you were here yesterday. Really? You were? I was. My, how time flies. Well, as I say, lovely. Choose your words carefully, Mr. Regis. Is it? She smiles up at him. Is it lovely to see me? With sensitivity? Obviously, he stresses. It is lovely to see you. In a friendly, just friends, and nothing else, just friends sort of way. Oh yes, that's about as sensitive as blunt trauma. That's not to say. May I remind you, Mr. Regis, this young lady is besotted with you? Of course. It is always a pleasure. Reg stammers and Doris brightens. However, he quickly puts in, today is not a social visit. Oh, Doris sags. What my brother is so eloquently trying to say, Doris, is that we are here to find Bibi. Doris cuts in, turning to Trad. Is that you? Momentarily frozen mid-pick, all evidence of which is thankfully hidden from Doris's view, Vibi strolls and roll and associate tools and spinning grins her best. I don't like you, but I can pretend, grin. It's me, Vibi says as the two air kiss. Then, hovering around Doris, Vibi proceeds to compliment her on her outfit. As I was trying to say, yes, Pemity. We need to find. What? You know? Of course, she says. Pemity said you would come. So, all of this? Trad gestures the cage. So that I get to see Reg. No, not besotted. Scarily obsessed. I didn't want to risk missing him. Watching you while you sleep obsessed. While I am out clearing up your mess, she adds, glaring and jabbing at her finger at both Veith and Trad. So, Reg asks, you know where she is? Not exactly, she replies, letting go of his arm. She just popped up this morning. Oh, and apparently she told me that she is expecting you. Only she knows how to get to her hideaway. She pauses, fluffing her skirt. Oh, and apparently so does Trad. Really? Trad sighs. Do you have to keep on with the whole name thing? Yes, I do. She snaps at pointing at him, because it means I will never forget the first arrivals. There were plenty before me, and it's not like I was on my own. I mean, what about Regis Sedwent Enexios? Over there, he snips, enunciating his brother's full name. It may have escaped your notice, but we got here at the same time. That's different. How? Both Trad and Veeth asked. Because it's Reg, of course, she replies, astounded by their stupidity. I mean, duh, she adds, staring at their blank expressions. Really scary. Right, Trad says, after a moment. If I am to find Pimity, gesturing the locked cage. Sure, Doris replies, absently, returning to her smaller self. Mumbles, if you would. And that, my dear friends, is the end of these chapters. Tune in next time, as we are getting close to the ending of this book. And comment down below, what do you think of the story? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that they'll be able to find Pemity and the other children? And with that, my dear friends, this is Ruby, signing off.